Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to do a quick run through with you guys of how to quickly create like a rock style preset. Maybe a little bit heavier than rock. Hard rock on the verge of kind of like the metal thing. And we're going to do it with some basic tools. We're going to use an amp, we're going to use a cab, and we're going to use some simple effects just to keep things quiet and do things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our software, okay? And we're going to go to the amp section. We're going to choose the amps that we want, and we're going to figure out how we want all of our little pedals to sit here. Now, the first thing I like to do is I like to move my noise gate before the distortion and the amp. So the amp we're going to choose here, we're going to go in here and we're going to grab like a Marshall style amp. We'll go in and we'll grab the 50 watt JP since it's one of my favorite amps. And we'll go in and we got the green OD. All right, so with the green OD, what I like to do is I like to set my tone at noon, crank up the volume, and then bring your gain back, okay? So we'll turn that on real quick, and we'll turn on the cab. It's probably got the cab match turned on. It does, and we can go through the different cabinets, and we're just going to start with a basic, simple sound. So I'm going to set the gain around noon. I'm going to bring the presence back, bring those mids up, and bring some of that low end up. Bring back some of the treble, and we'll see how this sounds so far. So here's the amp without the tube screamer. Which on its own, not bad. But once you kick that tube screamer, it really gives you that girth and some clarity. Next thing I'm going to do, I probably brought that presence down a little bit too much, I think. Let's bring that back to about 50. Maybe a little more treble, too, on that one. That's not bad. Right now, I'm thinking the problem is my cabinet. See what the greenback sounds like. A little scoopy. It's got some weird spike top. It's not bad. To the Wagner. We're looking for a cabinet that's going to give us a nice mid-range and a decent bottom end. There we go. One of the most important things you can remember is the cabinet overall is going to affect your tone the most. So keep in mind that the cabinet you choose is going to be a real big part of how the amp itself sounds. You may have to redial your amp and change some things once you start changing the cab. So that's a good start. So the next thing we're going to do is I like to go in here with the EQ, and I like to just mess with the frequencies just a bit. So the best thing to do to learn how each one of these is going to affect your tone is going to be just to play a chord and then adjust the EQ and see what it sounds like. See that 4 kilohertz adds some more clarity. It's like takes the blanket like off the cabinet. Now, I don't really like the way that low end is. It's not really that tight. So I'm going to pull a little bit of low end. like that honkiness. Not a big fan of that, so I'm going to bring that down a little too. That almost gives it like a wah quality. The pedal down. So we're going to boost that just a touch because I like the way those mid-range sounds. Now for me, I personally like a little bit more gain than that, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bring up some more gain. Now that low end is still kind of tubby for what I'm going for. So maybe this Marshall's kind of not working for what I'm hoping to get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pick up a different amp. We're going to wind up seeing what that sounds like. It's a little more what we're going for. So let's add some mid-range and some treble to that. Volume. So, there's your amp on its own. Let's go back to that distortion. Now, one other thing I like to do with my patches is put on the noise gate. So as you can hear, the noise gate is going to get rid of all of that amp noise. And I like to adjust the gate good. You'll just get a little tiny bit of noise right after that. Then the other thing I like to do is I like my sounds a little bit more stereo, so I like to put a reverb on, but really, really like distant in the background. So what I'll do is I'll put a room verb on it, and I will set the decay time fairly short, and the pre-delay to 0. It just extends the tail out that little bit, kind of spreads it out stereo. Now, of course, you could always go in and load up your own cabs and your own IRs and whatever you want to do, but this is just using stock settings. None of this are NAMM presets or anything like that. This is just straight up already in the GP200, and I think this is a really quick and easy, really cool sounding patch for a bass line. Best thing you can do with this unit, though, is take your time, go through each amp one by one, find your favorite cabinet with each amp, and try to dial in the tones that you're going for. Remember, you're not going to get a Marshall to sound like a Mesa. You're not going to get a Mesa to sound like a 5150. You're not going to get a 5150 to sound like a Friedman. You know, they're very different amps and they all have different styles. Please make sure you're picking the right amp for the type of music you're trying to play and the type of tone that you're going for. That's one of the most important things anyone can learn. All of these amps sound very different from each other. So go through each one individually, maybe with your favorite cabinet. I seem to be liking the Mesa with the V30s right now. So what I do is I run each individual amp through that cabinet setup and see which ones I really like the sound of. I make a note of them, and then I'll go in and I'll create patches from there. If you guys have any other questions, any comments, please feel free to ask them down in the comments. I usually check YouTube once or twice a week. But, yeah, that's it. So now we're going to be checking out the Valeton GP200, a bunch of tutorials for that. Stay tuned for more stuff, and thanks, guys, for tuning in. Talk to you later.